You know, the older I get, the more I realize sometimes the most precious moments in life are the ones we spend alone. It might sound strange because most of us were taught that living alone is something to fear, or at least something sad. But through years of experience, I've come to see that it is precisely that stillness, that untouched space, where no one else dictates your time, that has taught me the greatest lessons about maturity, about personal growth. I still remember when I turned 40, the house suddenly became quieter than ever. The kids started leaving the nest, my spouse and I were busy with our own work, and I found myself spending many evenings alone. At first, it wasn't easy. Have you ever sat alone in a quiet room with every sound from outside fading away, and inside a kind of emptiness, even a bit of chill taking over? I went through that. And in those very moments, I asked myself, what will I do with this time? Will I let loneliness consume me? Or will I turn it into an opportunity to rebuild myself? Gradually, I realized that living alone does not mean being lonely. It can be an invitation, a door opening for us to reflect, to learn self-reliance, to listen to the inner voice that the noise of daily life often drowns out. Many scientific studies also show that people who know how to embrace solitude, who develop the ability to manage themselves when living alone, often have greater patience, stronger resilience after crises, and most importantly, they build a deep, unshakable confidence. An old friend of mine, James, once told me, I never truly knew what I wanted until I spent 2 years living alone after my divorce. At first, he only felt loss. But over time, he realized that period was like an advanced course in self-discovery. He learned how to cook for himself, how to plan his own finances, and more importantly, he learned to listen to the dreams he had long neglected. Today, James is one of the calmest, strongest, and happiest men I know. And as you can see, not only James, but many people when they step into a phase of living alone. Whether because children have grown up, a partner is gone, or simply because they want to regain balance, have the chance to experience a new kind of maturity. It is no longer the maturity of your 20s when you try to prove yourself to the world, but the maturity of self-mastery, knowing clearly who you are, what you want, and what your deepest values are. I want you to imagine this. You wake up one morning. There's no noise from anyone else, no schedule to follow except your own. The kitchen is silent, filled only with the aroma of coffee you just brewed. You sit down, open a book, or simply watch sunlight pouring through the window. In that moment, you don't have to please anyone. You don't have to meet anyone's expectations. You only have you, and you begin to realize, maybe for the first time in a long while, that you haven't truly spent time with yourself. This isn't a glorification of isolation. It's an invitation to see it differently as an essential part of the journey of personal growth. Because when you live alone, you learn discipline. No one reminds you to go to bed early. No one urges you to exercise. If you don't take initiative, nothing magical will happen. And it is precisely this that trains your self-mastery, the solid foundation of all growth. I know that at 50 or 60, many of us feel we've already seen enough of life's ups and downs, and we may think there's nothing new left to learn. But the truth is different. Each stage of life opens a new classroom, and the stage of living alone, if you're in it now, is the classroom of resilience, of endurance. Because when you get through a hard day, relying only on your own shoulders, you realize you're far stronger than you ever imagined. There's an interesting point. Psychologists often emphasize when we're alone, the brain naturally slips into a reflective mode. That's when you start connecting memories, revisiting past choices, and drawing lessons. These quiet moments nourish inner growth, the kind no book, no seminar can ever hand you. And you know what? It was in those moments of solitude that I realized which relationships truly mattered. When you're no longer afraid of silence, you don't rush into shallow connections just to fill a void. You choose more carefully, more deeply. You know who deserves a place in your life and who is simply passing by. I share all this not to paint a rosy picture of living alone. I understand it can come with emptiness and at times sadness. But if we learn to see it differently, it's like a bare patch of soil. You have the power to sow new seeds. They're seeds of healthy habits, of long-forgotten passions, of self-understanding and quiet confidence. So before you rush to see living alone as a loss, I invite you to shift your perspective. See it as an inseparable part of personal growth. And perhaps in what seems like a lonely journey, you'll discover the strongest, most peaceful, and most authentic version of yourself. When we talk about growing up or maturing, most people immediately think of external success, career finances, social status. But you know what? After 60 years of life, I've realized that true maturity happens somewhere else inside each of us. And one of the most important steps in that journey is learning how to set boundaries. Have you ever felt exhausted just because you tried to please everyone? Those days when you agreed to meetings you didn't want, or took on extra work simply because you were afraid of letting someone down. I've been there. Many years ago, I thought kindness meant saying yes to everything. But the older I got, the more I understood that the greatest kindness is knowing when to say no. Boundaries are not walls to shut people out. They're like maps, guidelines that help others understand where the line is. It's like your home. You wouldn't let just anyone walk into your bedroom, the place where you rest and recharge. And yet so many of us, afraid of being called selfish, allow others to step too far, even to the point of damaging our inner peace. I remember a woman I once counseled. She was 55, and for many years, she let her children, neighbors, even friends decide everything for her. From small things like weekend plans to big matters like finances, she always gave in. One day, she sat across from me and said, "I don't even know what my life is anymore. I feel like a shadow in my own home." That moment made me wonder how many of us are losing ourselves simply because we're afraid to set boundaries. So setting boundaries is not selfishness, it is wisdom. It's a way of saying you respect yourself while also teaching others how to respect you. And the truth is, if someone truly loves you, they will understand and honor those boundaries. But if they get angry just because you protect yourself, maybe they never really valued you to begin with. Another important lesson I've learned is the power of silence. I know in today's world where everyone rushes to share where everyone wants to be heard, silence is often misunderstood as weakness. But from my own experience, I believe silence, when used at the right moment, is a kind of strength. I want you to imagine this. You walk into a noisy room. Everyone is arguing. Everyone wants the last word. If you shout too, you only add fuel to the fire. But if you stay silent, observing, listening, you'll see the bigger picture. And when you finally do speak, your words carry weight because they are not rushed reactions, but the fruit of reflection. I have an old friend now in his 70s who once told me, "The day I learned to be silent, I began to feel free." Simple words, but they carry a great truth. Silence saves your energy. It shields you from meaningless conflicts. And most importantly, silence allows you to hear yourself. Have you noticed? In today's noisy world, the hardest voice to hear is often our own. We hear the noise of social media, the expectations of family, the comparisons of friends. But we forget to listen to that quiet voice inside. What really matters to me? What do I need to feel at peace? Silence is the doorway back to that conversation. Another aspect I want to share is this: learning to keep certain things to yourself. Not everything beautiful needs to be displayed. Some joys, some dreams, some plans are like seeds in the soil. They need time in the dark to grow strong. If you expose them too early, others may intentionally or not discourage you, and the dream may wither before it even begins. I remember when I first started writing books and sharing knowledge. At the beginning, I was eager to tell everyone around me. But I quickly realized not everyone supports you. Some laughed, some doubted, some even said, "You're too old for this. Why bother?" If I had let their words stop me, maybe you wouldn't be here listening to me today. I learned that sometimes to let a dream survive, you must protect it in silence until it grows strong enough to stand on its own. And that brings me to another truth: true freedom. You know, I've met many wealthy, famous people admired by society, yet they were more exhausted than anyone else. Why? Because they were always proving themselves, proving they were still successful, proving they could still hold their image. They were prisoners of others' eyes. On the other hand, I've met ordinary, little-known people whose faces shone with peace. They didn't need to prove anything because they had accepted that they were enough. And I believe that is true freedom. Ask yourself, how many times in my life have I overshared just to seek validation? How many times have I grown weary of explaining choices that really only needed to make sense to me? If the answer is too many times, maybe it's time to reclaim the gate to your own life. I'm not asking you to change your entire life overnight. No one can do that, but you can start small. Keep one thing just for yourself. Maybe it's a new habit you don't want to share yet. Maybe it's a dream you're nurturing. Maybe it's simply an afternoon you spend just for yourself without anyone knowing. Nurture it in silence. Protect it. And one day, you'll be surprised to see how from that stillness, a new strength has been born. I share all of this not as someone lecturing from a stage, but as someone who has simply walked a few steps ahead of you on life's road. I've tried living to please everyone. I've feared silence. I've lost myself in too much noise. But slowly, little by little, I learned how to set boundaries, how to embrace silence, how to guard the sacred private spaces of my life. And I realized that is the foundation of peace. My dear friend, we've walked quite a long way together in this video. We've talked about toxic people, about setting boundaries to protect yourself, about the power of silence, and about the freedom that comes from keeping what truly matters to yourself. And now, before we close, I want us to pause for a moment to reflect, to gather our thoughts, and to remind ourselves of one simple truth. Every lesson we touched upon today, at its core, points us back to freedom and peace within the soul. Imagine this: your life is like a house with a porch, a living room, and a bedroom. You can welcome many people to sit on the porch and share a cup of tea. A smaller number of close ones can step into the living room where conversations are warmer and more genuine. But only a few, the ones you truly trust, are given the keys to your bedroom. The sacred space where you can rest, heal, and simply be yourself. Personal boundaries work the same way. They are not walls to keep people out, but gates that allow you to choose who comes in and how far they can go. The more you grow, the more you realize that not everyone deserves access to your most sacred spaces. Saying no at the right time doesn't make you selfish, it makes you wise. I still remember when I was about 50, I went through a very difficult season. At that time, I felt responsible for everyone. If someone asked for help, I said yes. If someone needed something, I provided. But after a while, I was exhausted. I couldn't sleep. I was irritable. I felt drained. That was the first time I truly understood kindness doesn't mean allowing others to cross your boundaries. True kindness is giving while still protecting your heart and your energy. And here's something curious: when you start setting boundaries, some people will get upset, even walk away. But later, you'll see that those who left were only there for their own benefit. The ones who truly value you will understand, and they'll respect you more for knowing how to care for yourself. I also want to return to the subject of silence. We often fear silence because it feels like loneliness. But over the years, I've learned that silence isn't emptiness. It is its own kind of fullness. In silence, you can hear your own heartbeat, your own thoughts, your own unspoken desires. A friend of mine, now 72, once told me, "The day I learned to be silent, I began to feel free." It sounds simple, but it carries a profound truth. When you know how to stay silent at the right moment, you no longer get pulled into pointless arguments or swept away by baseless criticism. Instead, you preserve your peace like a fertile patch of soil where new seeds can grow. This leads me to another point: the power of keeping things to yourself. In a world where social media pushes us to share everything, holding something back may seem unusual. But think about it. Not every beautiful thing needs to be put on display. A seed needs the quiet of the soil to sprout. Expose it too soon and it may wither before it has the chance to grow. I've seen many people share their dreams or plans too early, only to abandon them after hearing criticism or doubt from others. That's why it's important to allow yourself some privacy. Not to hide, but to protect. That's how you create a safe space where your dreams and joys can grow strong and healthy. And finally, I want us to stop and reflect on what true freedom really means. My friend, freedom doesn't come from the money you have in the bank or the number of followers you have online. True freedom comes from knowing who you are and no longer needing to prove it to anyone. I've met successful people who were constantly tired because they always had to keep up appearances. They lived like actors, terrified of showing their vulnerable side. But I've also met ordinary people unknown to the world whose smiles shine brighter than any spotlight. The difference. One group is always trying to prove, while the other has simply accepted that they are enough. Ask yourself, how many times have you felt drained from explaining choices that only you needed to understand? How many times have you overshared just to seek validation? How many times have you let others step so deep inside that they disturbed your inner peace? If the answer is too many times, then perhaps today is the day to begin again. And you don't need to change your whole life overnight. Start with something small. Maybe an afternoon you dedicate only to yourself without telling anyone. Maybe a dream you quietly nurture. Maybe a small habit you keep just for you as a gift to your own soul. Step by step, you will feel peace slowly return. Before we finish, let me leave you with 3 simple reminders. Keys, I believe, to a peaceful life. Peace doesn't come from the applause of many. Happiness doesn't come from proving you're better than someone else. Freedom doesn't come from saying whatever you want. Peace, happiness, and freedom, they all come from knowing when to open your heart and when to hold back. Let silence be your companion. Let privacy be your armor. And let the wisdom of setting boundaries be the gift you give yourself. Now I'd like to invite you into a little conversation. Leave a comment below and share with me. What is one thing you will keep to yourself to protect your inner peace? I would truly love to hear your answer. Because every story you write not only inspires me, but also inspires the whole community gathered here on this channel. And if you found value in today's video, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. That way, you won't miss the next videos where I'll continue to share with you life lessons and valuable experiences to help you live stronger, steadier, and more meaningful every single day. My dear friend, thank you for staying with me until the very end of today's journey. Before we part, let me remind you of one simple truth. Life is not measured by what you share outwardly, but by the peace you keep within. Protect your boundaries. Protect your peace. And protect the strength of spirit that no one can ever take away. See you in the next video.